everybody. It's Emily and Josh here for the Discover Fort Smith podcast. And today we are with Kaity Gould. She is one of the owners of Fort Smith Coffee Company. Hi, Kaity.
Hello. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so glad to have you. Just to start out, can you just give us some background about how you got here? What's your story? Have you always been in the coffee business?
So no, it was kind of a windy road to get to this point. My husband and I actually met in California. That's where I was born and raised. So we met in San Diego. He was stationed in the Navy.
Love
there.
San Diego.
He was stationed there, and we met and lived kind of several places. We moved to Sydney, Australia about 6 months after we were married.
Whoa, that's a big change. Just several places.
I know,
Sydney,
right?
Australia. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm thinking like Dallas or something. Sydney, okay.
Yeah,
Forget Dallas.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. That just caught me off guard.
It was quite an adventure. We knew that was our first stop. So we went there for Hillsong International Leadership College. My husband, Gabe, he went through the Worship and Creative Arts program there. And that is actually where I had my very first barista job. So this was, going on 20 years now ago. And that's kind of where I learned all about craft coffee, how coffee is grown, harvested, processed, how it gets to us, and I was very intrigued. And more than anything else, I saw what happened over a cup of coffee with community.
Mm-hmm.
When you gather people around a table over a cup of coffee or food or whatever it may be, it's just very conducive to community building and sharing, connecting. And so that is when the dream was birthed for me. I loved it. I loved being in the industry. And so that's where I decided, okay, I'm going to have a coffee shop one day. It was a little bit windy to get here. That was the initial dream. We moved back to the States and actually moved here to Fort Smith because my husband was born and raised here. Okay. So we moved back here, bought a house in Greenwood. And then we ended up moving around a little bit more as we started our family. So we actually kind of went backwards from some of the typical, traditional stepping stones, but started a family, had our first child. We moved to Houston for a couple years, which was for Gabe got schooling education incentives through the military.
Okay.
And so we were able to do that. His mom lived down there at that time, and sister and their families. And so we lived there for a couple of years, and then we moved back to my hometown in California. Because I have a brain injured mother. So we were trying to live closer to her. And at that point, we were there for a couple of years and made the decision that although I love it, I'll always have a soft spot for it's San Luis Obispo, California. So it's a coastal, central coast town. I love it, but the cost of living was not really conducive to a healthy, balanced lifestyle for us. We were working too hard and kind of tag teaming with the kids. And so kind of shifted gears at this point, trying to move my mom out here to Fort Smith, but moved back here in 2013 spring. And at that time, I was pregnant with our fourth child. So we had three by that time. Moved back here to be around family, and really just because the cost of living and the community, there's so much to love about Fort Smith. So it was a hard decision, but also pretty easy. We knew what we were coming home to. And so we relocated here, and then really about a year after being back here, everywhere we lived or traveled, we'd always seek out the mom and pop coffee shops, the ones who are roasting their own coffee beans and the smaller guys. And so when we moved back here, it was kind of lacking as far as the coffee industry. We saw a lot of room to grow. And so we started roasting on a little, and when I say roasting, it's essentially, I'll dumb it way down, but it's essentially cooking raw coffee beans.
Yeah.
So when we get them, they're green, unroasted. So we started roasting on a little vintage popcorn popper.
Honestly,
in our kitchen.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
And it can get messy.
It can absolutely.
And smelly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We filled the kitchen with smoke so many times. I mean, it's so easy to scorch them because, they're popcorn poppers, not meant for coffee, but we were just having fun playing around with it. And then we upgraded to a little bit larger coffee roaster when we were able to, and really just made it was a hobby for us. Started roasting a little bit larger batches. And when I say that, it's like 1 pound at a time. So it was still very small. And started gifting fresh roasted coffee to family members and friends for Christmas. And people kept asking more questions and being really interested in what we were doing. And we were both working jobs, different jobs at that time. But the interest really kind of activated something in us again, where the dream was on the back burner for several years. Gabe asked one day, what do you think? Do you think now's the time, to start trying to pave some groundwork for our coffee business? And so we started roasting coffee and popping up the tent every Saturday at Farmers Market and building up a client base that way, or customer base. And started very grassroots. So we did that for about 3 years before we pursued a brick and mortar.
What made you want to make that change from the pop-ups to the brick and mortar? Was it like overwhelming demand, or?
It was a lot of interest. We were selling a lot of coffee back, fresh roasted coffee, and people would start to ask, when can we come and sit down in a shop and enjoy a cup of this coffee? And in the back of my mind, I always knew that's where we were headed. It's just, life and waiting for the right time. And so we actually had a couple different investors interested in what we were doing, because I kind of from day one, I was active on social media, wanted to invite people into what we were doing. And so had a couple different investors interested at that time. So that was really an indicator to us that, okay, maybe it's time to take the next step. So we didn't end up partnering with the investors, but we did start pursuing a brick and mortar. So we started looking around Fort Smith. We knew we wanted to do it here in city limits, and the downtown area just has so much potential and so much rich history.
And it's charming. There's
so
a charm
charming.
to it.
Yes, so charming. And as a matter of fact, there was a Fort Smith Coffee Company in the early 1900s that was located right over here on North 2nd Street. And so that was also a draw to downtown, because this is was a center of coffee industry back in the day. Not coffee shops like we think of them, but they were importers of coffee beans and distributors. And so, we started looking around. We knew we liked quirky and not, more rough around the edges and not perfect little template. We wanted something interesting and a little more urban. And so we got we set our eyes on our original location at 1101 Rogers Avenue.
I love it. I love it.
It's always been such a cool building, just the architecture, the location, and I'm shocked that no one really did anything with it for so long. And it had definitely never been in, food or beverage industry. It was it was a gas station.
Okay, I was going to ask, what was it?
Yeah.
It was a gas station.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Did you keep the original windows? Because you can open up.
Yes, we kept those. We had to do a lot of, when we got our hands on it, it was just being used for storage pretty much. And so someone had painted all the glass around the building just solid gray. So we went through,
scrape all that paint off.
well, we tried
Yeah.
paint thinners, we tried scraping. We ended up having to just bust out all the glass. So literally, I remember holding a 4x4 post and busting out panes of glass because we just had to set new glass but yes, we kept the frames. We kept as much as we possibly could of the original character of the building. And so, it was gas station built in 1928. It started as a deep rock oil company. So there were still vehicle lifts in there. We had to pull those out, and it was a project.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But it's such a cool place because you do have that exposed brick feel, like the concrete floor,
Yes.
like the big long counter with the giant windows, and the feel there. That was the first Fort Smith Coffee Co. I went to.
Oh,
was the original location. And I was like, oh, it made me feel like I was back in Austin a little bit, and I was like, oh, I feel at home here, you know? Yeah.
I'm so glad. That was always the intention, just to invite people in to interesting spaces over great coffee and community. So
now, go
ahead.
So then you opened a second location at the bakery district. How did that come about?
Did. So for a few years, we were doing all of our baking. So from day one, we have baked everything from scratch. We've made our syrups that we put in the coffee. We've done everything kind of the hard way, but that takes some space. And so we operated inside a little kiosk inside Brick City Emporium, inside the shops at Brick City.
Oh, okay.
And did our baking and food prep there. Also served coffee, but we outgrew that space, and we were looking for a way to expand our roasting operations. At that time, we just still had the little tiny roaster inside the original location, but we were kind of busting at the seams. We needed more space, and so we knew we wanted to get into the wholesale side of things to roast more coffee, be able to produce more, handle more volume. And so we started asking questions. We heard about the project at the bakery district that the Hannahs were already working on. And I approached them just to ask a simple question about roasting some coffee at the bakery district. That initial conversation led to really very natural growth of, or I guess expansion of our original vision at the bakery district, became a whole second retail location for us. So as we started thinking about it, we're like, oh, this could be so cool to have the opportunity to have outdoor seating and, or more outdoor seating, more than our couple tables at the original. But yeah, so it really grew naturally. When you work with great people, things just kind of, I know it's not hard. It's just a lot of discussions and figuring out logistics on how to make it work. So that's really what ended up happening. So the bakery district location is larger actually than the original. I was able to do a fun idea that I had with hammock chairs. I wanted to do it in the original.
Those are so great.
It's so fun. I've wanted to do it in the original spot. We just didn't have the space. So being part of that community and at the bakery district was, and again, we just have no problem investing in downtown Fort Smith because we see where it's going. We see the progress that's happening. So it made a lot of sense for us. Because of, more space there, we actually use it kind of as a commissary. So that's where we store everything, prep everything to supply the other locations.
Yeah. Whenever I have a meeting or I have family in town or friends visiting, that's where we go.
Yes,
same.
I love that.
Yeah.
Same.
I love that.
And now there's like the little Fort Kids pop-up over
Yeah,
there,
right next
right by
door.
you guys. And
So cute.
it's just a great place for anybody to go. If you've got kids, you can go. It's just relaxing. You can go to that Fort Kids pop-up, drink your coffee, chat. Yeah.
It's a great spot. Yeah, you guys have what I appreciate is you guys have really brought craft coffee here.
Yeah.
And it's something that this community needed, I think. It's something that I longed for as a coffee nerd. I longed for that. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
It sounds like the journey was long and winding to get there.
Absolutely.
And now you have another location even.
Yes.
So we're
Which
here.
is where we are right now.
Yeah.
20 feet that way.
Yeah.
So when we opened the Bakery District location, we actually opened in June 2020. So if you remember, that was a wild time. So we got through that and still were able to build, keep growing the business the way we wanted it. And we had considered opening at another location in a historic district, and plans we kind of detoured away from that just due to some unforeseen circumstances kind of outside of our control.
Mm-hmm.
But about, a year and a half ago, so maybe fall 24, maybe summer, we were presented with an option, we were presented with an opportunity to come and check out the cafe space here inside the U.S. Marshals Museum. And at that time, we were not really ready to open because we were possibly pursuing another opportunity. And about, this past summer, so I guess summer 24, I got my dates mixed up. So it was fall 23 when this first came up. And then this past summer 24, we said yes. They were looking for someone to come in and elevate the cafe space. They were already operating with some, light bites, snacks, but they really wanted to see something a little bit more elevated. And so the opportunity to come and operate here was really an easy yes. Again, great people to work with, and a river view.
Oh,
really
yeah.
Beautiful.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And in each of your locations, there is a feel, there's a vibe. And, the aesthetic and the decor, the design is such a huge part of how a space feels to people when they go there. Can you talk a little bit about your vision and what you were trying to create? And
Yeah. We were winging it.
That's what I like to hear. I love that.
Really. It was very organic the way we designed. We didn't bring in a designer. We had great friends to consult with, and we had a project manager, things like that. But really, it was very organic. So it kind of changed even as we started renovating. An example of that would be the original shop. There's a teal stripe that goes all the way around the interior, along with graffiti on the walls. Well, we kept all that. That was all original. That was there when we got our hands on it. That teal ended up being our kind of signature color. We've kind of brought it little pops of
on the coffee
teal
bags and such.
Here we are.
Yes, yes, and we painted the front of the bar that color. And so really, all of our locations aesthetically look very different. Just the same kind of heartbeat behind it, which is, what would we want to spend time in? And the idea is to create different aesthetics at each, so that people, they'll find their favorite and they'll prefer one over the other. Some people love the rough around the edges graffiti, metropolitan feel of the original. And then a lot of people love our plants. It's really just, we work with what we have in the building and then start adding to it.
Yeah.
So really, it was very organic how we designed all of them. They were just what we thought would work.
I like
and
that.
what we would want to hang out
It's not like you're trying to fit a puzzle piece where it doesn't go.
No.
You're just matching what's around you.
Yes. Yeah. I'm too much of a hippie for that. For that, following a template. Yeah.
And I love that you asked people you knew.
Oh, absolutely.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what, we'll have people that are listening that are maybe trying to start a small business or have a vision or a dream to do something, and you all followed through with it. Now you have 3 coffee shops. What would you tell somebody who's just getting started? Maybe they are unsure about what to do next, or is it worth it kind of questions to begin with?
Definitely worth it. definitely the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
We've ever done. It's definitely been collective partnership. If Gabe and I didn't have each other to lean on through this, we are equal owners in the business. We lean on each other a lot. Definitely the hardest thing.
Yeah.
So I would first and foremost encourage people to be passionate about what they're doing, because it'll take something greater than making money. Because I'll tell you, this isn't the industry to make money.
Yeah.
But something a little, something deeper. And for us, it's loving on people. So I would say stick with something that you're passionate about. Don't just chase an opportunity just because it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So definitely love what you're doing. Find purpose in it. And then practical steps. Research. The ASB TDC right here downtown is a gem that a lot of people don't take advantage of. They are such a great resource for information, market research, things like that. So that wasn't there when we were starting up, but it is a fantastic resource now. And to just get connected, entrepreneurship can be lonely sometimes. And I went through a Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program last year, and that was for the whole state of Arkansas. But what I learned in that is that I really wanted to bring that kind of small business community together here. So now I host, Tuesday mornings, I host a little entrepreneur mixer where we're just there to support each other, tackle problems that we may be having, kind of like a think tank. And so that would be my other piece of advice, is just getting connected. There are lots of other groups. I'm also part of BBR, and so really just looking for support and not trying to navigate alone. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to get told no, because you will, especially if you're pursuing, funding and all that. But it's worth it. It's worth it. It's the hardest thing, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
So,
have you ever had a time where you've tried something and it didn't work out, or maybe it fell flat? And how did you deal with that and come back? Because I think with like entrepreneurs and business owners, there's risk involved in like a lot of ways. There's, you're giving so much to your business. I think that's why it's so important. You have to be passionate about it to get that energy back that you're giving. So can you tell like a little story about something that maybe didn't go well and how you bounced back from that?
Resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. Which one do I choose from? So, one I can think of off the top of my head is we invested in a French crepe griddle, a double crepe griddle. We love crepes. We love savory crepes, sweet crepes. Well, we started doing offering them at the original location. This was before we opened at the bakery district. And it just never caught on. I wanted so badly, I wanted people to want the crepes, and ask for them. I wanted it to be a niche thing and something interesting that really isn't available, here in Fort Smith right now. So because we did the type that you can hold and eat, almost like a savory sandwich and stuff. Yeah. So we did a Mediterranean one that was great. Just never took off. So we cut it out because if it doesn't make sense financially, just because I want to do it doesn't mean that the community is ready for it or that they're going to want it. So, we listen to our customers, we watch our numbers, we make adjustments where necessary. So, and there have been a lot of stories like that. The journey of entrepreneurship is full of those. Yeah.
If you ever decide to bring crepes back,
I was just thinking, can we do like a bring back the crepes campaign? Because I want some crepes.
Just saying, we're here for you. Okay?
Idea, it might be time to bring them back,
absolutely.
That's great. So, what I'm wondering is, I'm sure it's difficult to balance. You have 4 kids. Is that what I
Yes.
heard you say?
Yes.
So difficult to balance work and then family life. And I'm sure owning coffee shops, this is all consuming. So how do you do that? How do you manage your time like that?
I kind of touched on this, but I just want to be real transparent. But we've had to work very hard. Gabe and I have had to work hard on our marriage. That means regular marriage counseling. I don't want to get too want, but it takes work.
Yeah.
And we have to have some strength and balance at the top if we want that to trickle down to our business. So we've not only worked hard on our marriage, and not as damage control, but as
preemptive.
prevention.
prevention.
Yeah.
Yes. Because we are very different from each other. We have different vision, different ideas, definitely different processes and ways of doing things. So figuring out that balance has been the most important piece of work that we've done. And that obviously affects our family greatly. Our kids are between the ages of 11 and 17, and we have twin 14-year-olds in the middle. So
That's busy.
That's amazing.
It's an active household. So we're always on the go. They're in sports and all that, but we really prioritize family time. We're both kind of homebodies, and we spend a lot of time hanging out just with our kids and at home, and really making sure that we're seeing them because they've been here through the whole journey. Our kids. I remember times when we first opened the shop, the original location. I was taking naps in my car behind the shop because I was just there constantly because we opened 7 days a week right out the gate.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I remember Gabe bringing the kids to me on Mother's Day because I wasn't able to get away. And I just cried. I was oh my gosh, those moments are going to happen. And then really it's working towards something better and more solid. And so I think we've always been family focused. So, and really Gabe is the one who I can tend to be a workaholic a little bit, and not for the work so much as, I have some issues with people pleasing. And so
I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you on this.
Absolutely. Totally. And so really he's been a great support to me saying, hey, come home. Hey,
It's time.
do this. And so having that has been absolutely crucial. So we really just prioritize family time together, and we try to delegate the right responsibilities. We delegate responsibilities to the right people so that we're not a slave to our business. We can't be that. We wouldn't be doing it if we were kept in that cycle.
Yeah.
We have to find ways to step out.
That brings me to talking about like the community.
Yeah.
You have the community that comes in externally, but you also have to build a community among your staff.
Yeah.
Right. And I imagine at first, with a lot of businesses, they can't afford to hire staff, and you just have to do everything yourself.
Yes.
And but now you have this great staff. I mean, we see Grace in here all the time. Like there's people I recognize all the time over at Bakery District. And what are the values that you guys have, and how have you worked to build community among your staff to make sure you've got the right people that you can rely on and you're giving them the right jobs and delegating so that you have time for your families?
This is going to be particularly helpful for me, so I'm going to take notes over you.
Me too. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, that's been so. Biggest challenge is working on our relationship at the top. Second, managing people. That has been one of the hardest things, and we've experienced heartbreak in it for sure, where we just wanted someone to be the right person for the job, and it just wasn't. And it wasn't a good fit. And so I've learned how to have hard conversations. That doesn't come naturally to me. But I've learned that it's important. We've also learned, especially in the last 6 months, we've experienced a lot of challenges, kind of a whole personnel turnover, if I'm honest. And so really that helped us really to get centered on what is most important to us. So what are we willing to tolerate in the name of grace? Because that was the thing. It's like, oh, we're tolerant. We give people chances and there's grace, but then that becomes the standard, right? So when you give too much, then kind of people follow suit. That's just human nature. So, so if there was negativity or gossip, things that didn't align with our culture that we were trying to create, now we're a lot quicker to have those conversations. Fortunately, that means letting people go sometimes. That's not ever something that I want to do, and I always take it seriously, but it's definitely helped us feel more confident in our purpose here and what we want for our culture. So I'm kind of glad you asked that, because that's something that we have been laser focused on the last 6 months, is getting our team really, we're on the same boat and we're moving the same direction. They've got to have buy-in. So big part of that is we have a general manager, Savannah Rodriguez. She handles,
she's great.
She's awesome. So she handles the daily operations and personnel scheduling, all that. So that is a tremendous help. And at that leadership position, it's absolutely key. And she's the right person for the job. And we've had other experiences that maybe weren't the best fit, but our values are really community, love, acceptance, so inclusivity, fun. We like to keep it fun and creative. So, we ask the crew for ideas for our seasonal menus. We do a new seasonal drink menu 4 times a year and get them involved. We have monthly all staff meetings. And I know some of this is typical, but honestly, some of these processes took us a long time to get consistent with, because so much of the time you're just kind of putting out fires, you're doing this, that. And so the consistency has been key, gathering our team together, communicating what is and is not acceptable behavior, on shift. And so really, we want everyone to feel safe and happy to come to work. We give them creative freedom to choose the music they listen to. So sometimes it's Taylor Swift, and sometimes, it's smooth jazz. So you just never know what you're going to get. But we kind of like it that way, because as we're quirky, so is our team. Everyone's so unique. And so really, we have had to move a little bit more in a corporate direction, which that's kind of a icky word, or it was to me. But we're realizing how important evergreen processes and procedures are. And to where here's our standard, and then, disciplinary measures under that to support it, and accountability. So, we're present. Gabe and I are both present in the shops, and not as much as we used to be, but that's the point.
Right.
At this time, that's where we've moved to. So, we really just try to cultivate, and in fact, I had all the staff do a core values exercise to kind of figure out what motivates them, how are they operating, based on what set of rules or priorities. And Gabe and I have a very strong faith. We are Christians. We're strong believers that we are supposed to love people well. And so not everyone on our team shares the same beliefs as us. We're kind of a melting pot, a lot of political and religious variance on our team. We love that, because there's just a lot of understanding for each other and great conversations that happen. And so
it expands.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And as a follow-up, as a fellow people pleaser who was, I used to be extremely conflict averse, and then I became a school principal. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh snap.
Yeah.
There's conflicts everywhere. And I had this amazing boss at the time who was a really a great mentor to me. And he was talking to me about having the hard conversations and how important it was. You have to have those ASAP, because the longer you wait, the worse that conversation will be. And he gave me a book called Fierce Conversations. Have you guys read that book?
I haven't
read it.
Highly recommend. It really changed my thinking about those types of conversations. Do you have resources that helped you figure out, how to do that and how to do that well and in a way that aligns with your values, and resources for creating these procedures and policies that maybe would help other people who are in management positions or business owners develop
Sure.
them for themselves?
Yes. Let's see. I mean, so much of it, I started really taking a good hard look at myself as a leader when I was in the Goldman Sachs program last year, because it forced us to. It was like, and it feels vulnerable and scary to look within ourselves. But being honest is where it starts. So
Right.
you know your shortcomings, and some are more aware than others of their shortcomings. But then there's a tremendous amount of resources, podcasts, leadership podcasts. There's drawing a blank on the name of it, but it's specifically for coffee shop leaders, so managers or owners. And our general manager, Savannah, she listens to that all the time. So for me, it's just been a matter of surrounding myself with people who encourage me to step into that healthy assertiveness, and reading books on. I love Good to Great was a book that I read.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I've not read that one.
oh yeah, Good to
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
John
Great by choice too. Jim Collins.
Jim Collins,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
Jim Collins. Yeah.
Gotta get that one.
Yeah. So that's about taking businesses that are doing okay and helping them kind of go to the next level. And so obviously one of the top priorities is leadership.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, just surrounding yourself with a community that's like-minded, and that helps you. I really needed to work on my own self-confidence. That's where, a lot of my aversion to the hard conversations came from. I didn't want to hurt feelings. I wanted people so badly to be seen and understood and validated. And I had to kind of realize that where I stand on things, my values, that's kind of really important too.
Yeah.
And so drawing hard lines. But yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I love the idea of keeping your staff like diversity and thoughts and backgrounds. Really, that's why I love coffee.
Yeah.
Because it brings people together.
Yeah.
I was a barista for a very short stint.
Ooh, fun.
And
You can come moonlight for us sometime.
definitely out of practice. But I loved watching people come in and the conversations that naturally occur over a cup of coffee that probably wouldn't otherwise. So you're really curating spaces for conversations like
Right.
that to happen. So love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
It's
we
an
really
honor.
appreciate it. It was great to have you on, and thanks for what you're doing in the community.
Yeah.
And how you're bringing people together.
Yeah.
I love Fort Smith. I really do. So this is home. Love it. I'll keep investing in it.
Yeah.
Yay.